And some people argue that a little bit of corruption can be good for the economy. They call it grease. The idea is that bribery can speed up things like getting permits or contracts. In theory, this faster pace could lead to quicker economic growth. Imagine a factory owner who wants to open a new plant. They might be tempted to pay a bribe to get the necessary permits faster. This could, in theory, get the factory up and running sooner, creating jobs and boosting the local economy. But here's the problem with the grease argument. It's dangerously flawed. It assumes that corruption is a victimless crime, a small price to pay for economic progress. That's simply not true. Corruption has real victims, ordinary people who are denied opportunities and basic services because of greed and dishonesty. Think about it, every dollar paid in a bribe is a dollar diverted from essential services like healthcare, education, and infrastructure. It's a dollar stolen from taxpayers and funneled into the pockets of corrupt officials and their cronies. Corruption eats away at the very fabric of society. When people lose faith in their institutions and leaders, it creates a climate of cynicism and apathy. Why bother participating in a system that seems rigged against you? Imagine a young entrepreneur trying to start a business in a corrupt country. They quickly realize that success depends not on hard work and innovation, but on their willingness to play a corrupt game. Faced with this disheartening reality, many talented individuals either give up on their dreams or leave their countries in search of fairer opportunities. This brain drain deprives nations of their most valuable asset, their human capital. Corruption also undermines the rule of law. When laws are applied selectively and unfairly, it creates uncertainty and instability. Businesses are hesitant to invest, and citizens lose faith in the justice system. This can lead to social unrest and even violence. Corruption acts like a regressive tax, disproportionately hurting the poor and vulnerable. When public funds are siphoned off through corrupt practices, it's the poorest who suffer the most. They are the ones who rely most heavily on government services like healthcare, education, and social safety nets. Furthermore, corruption perpetuates a vicious cycle of poverty and inequality. When the playing field is tilted in favor of the corrupt elite, it becomes nearly impossible for ordinary citizens to break free from the shackles of poverty. They are denied access to opportunities, resources, and even basic necessities. Corruption diverts scarce resources away from vital public services. Imagine a government that allocates funds for building schools, hospitals, and roads. But because of rampant corruption, a significant portion of that money ends up in the pockets of corrupt officials and their cronies. As a result, schools remain dilapidated, hospitals lack essential equipment, and roads crumble under the weight of neglect. This misallocation of resources has a devastating impact on human development. Children are denied quality education, the sick are deprived of adequate healthcare, and entire communities are trapped in poverty due to lack of infrastructure and opportunities. Section 5. A rigged game, corruption, and market distortions. Corruption distorts markets and stifles competition. When contracts are awarded based on bribes rather than merit, it creates an uneven playing field that favors the corrupt and connected. This discourages innovation, efficiency, and fair competition. Imagine a small business owner who consistently loses out on government contracts to a larger competitor. Even though they offer better services at lower prices, they later discover that their competitor secured those contracts through bribery and kickbacks. This unfair advantage not only harms the small business owner, but also deprives the public of better services and value for their money. Section 6. The vicious cycle of corruption and poverty. Corruption and poverty are locked in a vicious cycle. Corruption thrives in environments where poverty, lack of education, and weak institutions prevail. Similarly, corruption exacerbates poverty by diverting resources, distorting markets, and hindering economic growth. Breaking this cycle requires a multi-pronged approach that addresses both corruption and its root causes. This includes promoting good governance, strengthening institutions, empowering citizens, and investing in education and economic opportunities for all. Section 7. The global fight back against corruption. The good news is that the fight against corruption is gaining momentum worldwide. International organizations, governments, civil society groups, and ordinary citizens are joining forces to expose and combat this scourge. From strengthening legal frameworks and enhancing international cooperation to promoting transparency and empowering whistleblowers, there is a growing recognition that corruption is not an inevitable fact of life, but a solvable problem. Section 8. Building a culture of integrity. Ultimately, tackling corruption requires a fundamental shift in attitudes and behaviors. It's not enough to simply punish the corrupt. We need to create a culture where integrity, accountability, and transparency are valued and rewarded. This involves promoting ethical leadership, strengthening education systems, empowering citizens to hold their leaders accountable, and fostering a free and independent media. Section 9. Conclusion: a fairer future for all. Corruption is not a necessary evil. It is a cancer that eats away at the very core of society, undermining trust, fueling inequality, and hindering progress. By working together, we can create a world where corruption is not tolerated, where governments are accountable to their citizens, and where everyone has an equal opportunity to thrive. Remember, the fight against corruption is not just a matter of economics. It's a fight for a fairer, more just, and more prosperous future for all.